Moving to a new town and starting over is never easy. It is less easy when you pick a random town and a random state 1,000 miles away from everyone and everything you've ever known. But just last month, I did that. Recently divorced with no kids and my parents long dead, I decided I needed a new start. I remembered a place I'd read about once, so I bought a bus ticket and arrived on a steamy Saturday in July. Finding a hotel was easy enough, but I knew my savings wouldn't afford me to live in one more than a couple of weeks. So I got online and looked for a room to rent. As luck would have it, I found someone willing to rent out their basement. I had my own living room, bedroom, and bathroom. I had to use the kitchen and laundry facilities too. It seemed like it would just be perfect. The lady I was renting from was rarely home due to her job and social life. That suited me just fine. I had decided I was going to make my lifelong dream of becoming a writer true, and so the quiet basement was the perfect place to do that. My first night in my new abode was uneventful. I unpacked my things, took out my laptop, and belted out a few thousand words. I passed out sometime after 2 a.m. It was the next night that I realized my landlady was not my only roommate. I was sitting on my bed, sometime after midnight, trying to decide how my hero would handle her latest catastrophe. And I had the sensation that I was being watched. I looked up and noticed my door was cracked open. Had I left it open? I couldn't remember, but just as I was getting up to close it, I saw her. She looked to be about 4 years old. She had long, dark hair and piercing blue eyes. She was wearing what looked to be a long, pale blue nightgown. She was peering into my room, just watching me. Figuring that my landlady must be babysitting, I stood up and I went to the door. "It's a tad bit late. You should be in bed." By the time I reached the door, she was gone. I hadn't heard her go up the stairs, but they were carpeted and she was just a little thing. She was probably scared of some lady telling her to go to bed. And bed sounded like a good idea. I shut and locked my door and decided to leave my hero in her crisis for the morning. The next evening, when my landlady came home from work, I invited her to eat with me. I decided to bring up the subject of the little girl and how I wasn't comfortable with a child down in my apartment. To my confusion, she said that she had no idea what I was talking about. She said that she didn't like children enough to babysit, even if she knew someone with children of that age. I knew there had to be a little girl there, though. I was not just seeing things. Or was I? That night when I went to bed, I made sure to shut my door. I kept looking up and I was sure that I would see the door cracked and the little girl just standing there. But nothing unusual happened. In fact, nothing unusual happened for the next 5 nights. I had almost chalked the whole incident up to having an overactive imagination and being a little tired, and then it happened. I was just sitting on the couch in my living room, watching a movie when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. And there she was, the same girl in the same nightgown, standing by my door. She was staring at me again. She had this forlorn look on her face. Startled, but wanting to get to the bottom of this, I decided to talk to her again. "Hi there, what's your name?" She said nothing, but continued to stare at me with the saddest expression I'd ever seen. And then she walked over to the door, and my landlady told me that it was just an old musty storage closet that was never used. When she got to the door, she looked back at me. Again, she had the saddest expression I had ever seen on a child. And then she disappeared. Now I knew something weird was up. One minute she was there, and the next minute she was gone. Just like that. I knew that I wasn't hallucinating, and I sat there for a few moments in shock. I'm not sure if I were more freaked out or just curious. I mean, I had just seen a ghost. Literally. But why? Who was she? Why was she appearing to me? Finally, my curiosity got the better of me and I went to the closet to inspect it. The door is locked and I thought about trying to pry it open, but it was late and my landlady was upstairs asleep. The last thing I needed was to get kicked out because I was breaking into an empty closet. Giving up for the night, I went to bed. But sleep was not going to find me that night. I thought over my options and I decided that I would try to talk to my landlady again. I wasn't really sure what I would say, but I didn't know what else to do. The next morning, I decided to go up early and have coffee with her. After my first few sips, I had come up with the idea to get her to talk. I have kind of a weird request, Laura. Do you think there is any way that I could get into that old closet down in my living room? I heard some noises in there last night and I think that there might be mice or something in there. I thought I would look for mice trappings and if there was any, I'd go buy some traps. What happened next both shocked and confused me. Laura looked at me with what only can be described as hatred in her eyes. There is nothing in that closet. Nothing. Do you understand? That closet is to be remained closed. Is that clear? I managed to mumble, "Yeah, sure, I'm sorry." She drank the rest of her coffee down at one gulp and slammed the cup into the sink. She said nothing else to me and stormed out the door, slamming it on her way out. Now I was more than a little curious and my mind was running wild. I knew that there must be something in that closet and I was determined to find out what it was. As soon as I was sure that Laura was at work and wouldn't be back, I looked around until I found a screwdriver. I went downstairs and after many attempts, I managed to jimmy the lock off the door and popped it open. As soon as the door was open, the smell of death and decay hit me full on. I felt my coffee trying to come back up, but I somehow managed to keep it down. This was more of a room than a closet. It was dark and there was no light that I could find. So I grabbed my phone and turned on my flashlight app. The room was a lot bigger than I imagined. There were cobwebs everywhere. Towards the back, I saw what looked like a box of some sort. As I got closer, I saw that it was an old trunk like the sort of my father had when he was in the military. As luck would have it, it wasn't locked and it opened easily. But I really wish I hadn't. I wish it had been locked. I wish I had never pried that door open because what I found inside will haunt me for the rest of my life. Laying there in the old trunk was a skeleton. A bit of brown hair was clinging to its pitiful, bashed-in skull. It was wearing the same nightgown that I had seen the little girl wearing. I slammed the trunk closed and made my way out of that room as quickly as I could. I shut the door back, making sure it was locked, and I paced back and forth in my living room. And then I looked back at the door and I noticed that when I was trying to pry it open, I had left noticeable marks on the door and the frame. If Laura came downstairs, she would have known that I had been in the secret room. She would know what I found inside. I had to get her to the house before she got home, but where would I go? I didn't even have the money for one night in a motel and I didn't know anyone I could call in the area. I knew I couldn't be here when Laura got home, so I threw everything in my suitcases and called a friend from back home. I didn't tell him what I found, but only that I needed to borrow a few $100 and that it was life or death. Luckily, he was a good enough friend that he didn't question me. He waved me the money right away and I called an Uber and got a driver to take me in, pick me up the money, and then go to a cheap motel. I had been sitting here for the past 8 hours trying to decide what to do. Should I call the police or should I just go back home? Should I try to rent another room somewhere else? I'm supposed to start a job next week and I'm unsure if I should stay here. Laura has texted me 3 times and she noticed that my stuff was gone. That means she must have noticed the pry marks on the door. Oh, and to make matters worse, I'm not alone. The little girl ghost has been standing by my door to the motel room, staring at me for the past hour.